Alright, white song check.
Colored songs.
The system.
Okay, that's only needed for like. Do you think I should just, no, that's okay, I think. That's okay, I'll just. Let me. 1, 2, 3. Believe it or not, believe it or not. Oh, God. I should. Thank you. Happy birthday, Patrick. Okay, we're good.
All right, in order for the video to sound good, I asked you guys to not talk too much during the presentation because unfortunately the speaker or the recording device is on the table. So it has to record the person here. It's a little bit harder when there's noise in the foreground. Okay, so we're going to start with Ryan today. Okay, and so get your notes out, please, and then you're gonna. Those of you who are presenting today, okay, if you have your laptop open, make sure that the title doesn't say copy of classical literacy. Okay, it has your name or your term. And how
yourself.
right, give Ryan the floor. Right, go start it.
So I was kind of being a little messed up. I didn't know my first. It's not so smooth like mine. But you know,
Those of you who have your computers and yesterday, contributions were pretty good. In the fact that you made a concerted effort to look it up. And few of you, like George, came up and didn't have any notes and was able to do it without looking at his computer. That was helpful. But you just look glanced down, but it's kind of read off of the screen, okay? Yeah, that's even better. Okay, all right, so Patrick is listening, and then this is also good for the rest of you to have. All right. Just give me 1 second.
Oh, the students that are back.
Where's my paper?
Whoops. They're just not into the student.
Oh. Just 1 second.
Going back to Arsenal. I get blessed.
and I know you mom.
I didn't know we were seeing that. On that last night. It's the same. I actually got a paper last. All right, go ahead. Hey, what is it, crowded?
Okay, sorry, here we go. Remember keep the talking to a minimum so that the voice in the front is clear. Right.
All right.
So I would take me known as Ryan Song, and this is classical literacy item number 31, Calypso, which is a literature topic or heritage. So first of all, who is Calypso? She's a prominent character in Homer's The Odyssey, which we've all read hopefully in summer. So she's a captivating immortal nymph and the daughter of the Titan Atlas. She was banished to the island of Ogygia because she helped the Titans and her father in the Titan War against the Olympian gods, and she was banished to the island of Ogygia, a mythical island. I think I'm not sure where it is. It was made up, but I think it's somewhere near Greece in the real life. So first of all, this is Odysseus and Calypso, which I'll go more into in the next slides. But this picture shows Odysseus looking out at the sea, where he longs for his home of Ithaca, while Calypso tries to, I guess, seduce him. But we'll look more into that right here. So Calypso in the Odyssey. After Odysseus fought the seas, after trying to go home from Troy, he got shipwrecked and landed on the island of Ogygia, where Calypso found him and nurtured him while he recovered. He fell in love with Odysseus. She fell madly in love with him and could not afford to leave him, let him leave. And although Odysseus wanted to return home to Ithaca, she wanted Odysseus to become her immortal lover. Like, she offered him immortality to live with him forever, or her forever. But Odysseus wanted to return home to his wife Penelope and Telemachus. So Calypso decided to seduce Odysseus to stay for 7 years. Now, Odysseus didn't want to stay, or he wanted to leave back to Ithaca, but I think Calypso was giving her like enchanting powers, where it's able to seduce her and stay for 7 years with Athena, the patron god or goddess of Odysseus, decided to intervene, and ask Zeus and Hermes to bring back Odysseus. So after Hermes and Zeus decided to intervene, Calypso argued about the gender double standard, because in Rome and Greek mythology, you see a lot of gods just taking whatever mortal woman they want. Zeus and his many affairs, but goddesses, and especially in this case Calypso, they aren't really allowed to do the same thing, and she argued about that double standard. But in the end, she had to agree to what Zeus said, and she agreed to let Odysseus go. Now, the importance to the ancient and modern world. It represents conflicts of temptation versus loyalty in Odysseus' temptation of having immortality with a beautiful goddess, and versus loyalty to his home in Ithaca. It also represents the desire for freedom versus the oppressive chains, which can be seen in both Calypso and Odysseus, because in Calypso she has a desire to escape her island, she's forever stuck there, versus the oppressive chains of the gods putting her there. But there's also Odysseus who wants to go back to his home, but chained down by Calypso's seduction. Now, the modern significance is that it's a kind of feminist viewpoint. In Calypso's stand against Zeus, like, she speaks on the hypocrisy of the gender hierarchy and the gender double standard that I've just talked about. And as sort of reflection on the research process. Like many other people have said, information gathering was much faster. It was concise and summarized. And finding sources was made a bit easier after I searched it up. But there was also risk of factually incorrect information. Although I didn't have any, it took some time to fact check with reputable sources. And now quiz. First of all, why was Calypso sent to the island of Ogygia? Okay.
She was banished there for helping him for that year.
That's right. Second question, how long did Calypso keep Odysseus on her island? And
7 years.
alright, these are my choices, and that's it.
Nice job. Right, and So, Hunter.
Good test. Hey, let's see.
But you can begin whenever you're ready, okay?
Salvatore, known as Monetary. Today I'll be showing classical literacy number 37 and 39, which includes classics, classical antiquity, and demagogue. And it covers history. So classics, a journey through time. Classics is a study of the ancient Roman and Greek cultures. And they explore art, literature, history, languages, and theater all at once. And the study starts with the third millennium BCE. It ends with the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. And classic majors deepen their understanding of the relationship of the past, present, and future. And the reason why someone might study this is so you can learn how we are very similar to the people of the past and how we are vastly different. And here we have a group of classic majors studying. They go to Wabash EDU, studying abroad, looking at photos and stuff from Asia. Next we have classical antiquity. Classical antiquity was a period in history where Greek and Roman culture prospered. Architecture such as the Parthenon was made, and other works of architecture like the Parthenon reflects commitment to aesthetic excellence and innovation at the time. And philosophers such as Socrates and Plato shaped the intellectual landscape of the time. And we have Homer the poet, who wrote during this period, and he wrote lots of famous poems, ones that we actually read during the summer, the Odyssey and the Iliad included. And this Homer kind of signifies the creativity that happened during classical. And then next we have demagogue, who is a leader of a mob or a political leader. And it comes from the Greek word demos and gogos, which demos means the people and gogos means leading. And it's usually a political leader who gains popularity by arousing the common people against the elites of society. And it's usually men who live by dishonorable means. And some modern examples of demagogues can be such as Adolf Hitler, Benito Mussolini. And an example of an ancient demagogue from Rome was Publius Clodius Pulcher. And this guy was a demagogue. He was also nicknamed the bad boy of Rome. He was a leader at the time. And he was rumored to be having an affair with his brother-in-law's wife. Yeah, and it legalized
Brother-in-law.
his brother-in-law's wife, which is his sister. And he legalized gangs and they popularized gangs during Rome. And he gained the popularity of the people, but in the end, you should never really trust a demagogue. And so why are these terms important to the modern world? Well, classics is a major that people can study at universities today. And maybe some of Latin scholars in this room maybe want to take it. And classical antiquity has left its mark on Western civilization, shaping foundations of philosophy, governance, and arts. And demagogues have shown up countless times in history and still show up today. So by learning about them now, you can easily spot them, so you won't have to vote for them. And my reflection on the research process, the pros of ChatGPT was to give me quick and easy ideas for when I was stuck. Sometimes I have writer's block during a project, and ChatGPT gave me a spark of inspiration. And I think for the future, it could be a great tool to use as an outline for other projects. Over the cons, it was annoying to fact check everything because ChatGPT does have a history of giving you factually incorrect information. And when you did ask for sources, if you were to go to those sources, sources did not exist or had nothing to do with the research itself. And so quiz time, who was the famous poet of classical antiquity? We'll go next.
Homer.
That is correct. And what two Greek words demagogue come from? We'll go Michael.
Damos and Agolos.
Thank you.
No, it's
Go ahead and pass out that candy, and Nick is gonna be next. So let me get.
It's called, is there any way I can use it like the laser?
Yes, if it,
It's like maybe not the shake, but it's like,
He wants to be different so bad.
it's like, no, Jake, trust me, let's see. I guess.
Okay, let me grab it.
You use a laser on the slide.
I think it'll work.
Presentation.
yeah, it'll work.
That's.
Yakos is up.
Oh, here, let me change it.
Shit, I already broke.
What was yours called?
Introduce.
Oh, there it is.
Oh,
Right.
I think they should go at the same time.
Okay, alright, so I had
Just
classical
a second,
literacy,
just a second. All right, go.
I had classical literacy item number 40.
Well, you're
content-
gonna start with.
solitary, meaning no one that's on mid-range. Yeah, so my item was classical literacy number 40, Constantinople, and it falls under the geography category, but it's also sort of like history because it has a lot of historical impacts. So first let's start with the geography. So it's gonna be on the map here, it's gonna be like right here on the eastern point of Macedonia, and then it's gonna be on the west side of the Bosphorus Strait, which is like, it doesn't really show on the map well, but it's like the little waterway in between Asia Minor and Macedonia. And the very significant part geographically about Constantinople is that it links the broader Mediterranean, the Aegean Sea, and the Black Sea, which makes it a very, very important hub for trade and port because it's so convenient for a lot of states. And now it is located in modern day Istanbul, Turkey. So next, a little bit about Constantine. So he's the one who actually founded and named Constantinople, hence why the name sounds so similar. He was suspected to live between the years, they don't know for sure, 280 and 337 AD. And he actually established Constantinople after defeating Linus in battle. So they were both actually rulers of Rome, but they actually went to battle to see who would be the sole ruler of Rome. And then he ended up winning and decided to dedicate a city, Constantinople, in his name. And it's also called New Rome or Novum. So remember that. And a fun fact about him, he was the first emperor in Rome to evolve Rome into a Christian state. So that's also super important because of all the religious implications. So here's a small little timeline about Constantinople, because it was always a big city for a lot of states because of how important it was on a geographical scale with trade and all of that. So in 657 BCE, he finds this of Megara. He was the first person to find this settlement on the western strait of Bosporus. And then we have a big time jump here, and in between those centuries, it got controlled by a lot of huge powers during that time, including the Persians, Spartans, Macedonians, and Athenians. And then in 196 AD, Roman Emperor Septimius Severus, he destroyed the city and he kind of revamped it to how he liked it. And then in 324, finally, like I said earlier about Constantine, he defeated Licinius to become the sole ruler of Rome, and then established itself titling New Rome under Rome. And then a big important piece of this, going back to the layers of Christianity, the Hagia Sophia, it was kind of known to be sort of like the heart of the city because it was a big church. It also was known for its
pretty cool architecture. Where you kind of see it kind of has a thing where it always is shown to be lit up because of the extremely polished mosaics and marble. And yeah, going back to Constantine, how he established Christianity as the ruler of Rome, this is sort of like the place for that and the main church in the city. However, it was also constructed during like the peaking time of Constantinople by the Byzantine ruler Justinian I. And it was constructed in a very short time by 10,000 laborers. So, yeah. Next, some importance to the ancient / modern world. Constantinople was sort of like a center for faith, power, and trade. It had a lot of immense wealth and stunning architecture going back to the Hagia Sophia. And lastly, it was also known as like the Christian capital, and its churches had a major impact on global religion as a whole. And yeah, it still remains today in Istanbul, Turkey, as one of the major port centers globally because of how relevant its geographics are. And it's probably going to stay like that for a while, just because when you have somewhere that connects so many waterways, like that's always going to be a big advantage for a lot of things, especially like trade, obviously, the place's economy and military abilities. And then lastly, a reflection on research process. So the pros were that it was super, super fast and basically eliminated all of like me having to look up different sources and stuff. And I basically didn't have any errors with any correct information. And I feel like part of that is because when I do research on ChatGPT, it's sort of like more of an outline and doesn't really go into any specifics. So the margin for error, I feel like, is definitely increased. And then also, yeah, served as a good outline. And then the fact checking, honestly, for me, it made it like overall negative, just because I feel like if I really just looked it up and went to good sources immediately, I wouldn't have to deal with all that, and it would actually be pretty quicker. But the thing is also with ChatGPT, it's probably going to evolve, and it's going to probably be super dangerous in terms of like how specific it could get with its prompts. And yeah, a lot of the sources, like George said a few days ago, I had to like go into like archives and stuff, like internet archives, when I was looking up the sources, and that was just not fun at all. Like a lot of the sources I didn't even know if they were real. And now quiz time. So what were the bodies of water? What bodies of water did Constantinople live together? Brennan.
The Mediterranean and Black Sea.
Yeah.
What, Mediterranean,
Yeah.
He's missing.
Yeah, he's missing.
Sea.
Jake, you wanna answer it?
Oh, yeah, again.
And then secondly, this wasn't on the slide, but I would say to remember this, because I didn't mention it. After Constantine's victory, what did he decide to name Byzantium? It's not.
Pretty quick.
Nova Roma. Nova Roma.
Nice job.
Yeah.
We got our drinks the whole time. It's good that they're looking that way.
Good presence.
What is it?
I'll do those details.
It's wow.
All right, here, just a second, let me just set everything, okay, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so later, regional theory. I'm doing Crete and the Alpha Korea and geography and language. So in terms of geography, Crete is an island located in the Aegean Sea, and it's the largest Greek island by both population and land area. And it serves as a central location in the Mediterranean Sea, connecting Europe, Middle East, and North Africa. On our map, it's right here, you can see there the red star. So in terms of history, Crete has a long ancient history, most predominantly the Minoans. So the Minoans were an ancient civilization from around 2600 BCE to 1400 BCE, and they thrived during the Bronze Age. So they're named after a legendary king, King Minos, who's the son of Zeus, and Europa, who was a Phoenician princess. So little backstory on him. So he's closely tied to the famous myth of the Minotaur and the Labyrinth. And so after he prayed to Poseidon, for a sign of his favor. Poseidon sent him a bull, but he's supposed to sacrifice this bull, and he failed to do so. So as a punishment, Poseidon caused his wife to fall in love with the bull, and that's how the minotaur came to be. The half man, half bull creature. So they engaged in extensive trade, connecting other Mediterranean cultures in Egypt and Mesopotamia. And they also had really, for their time, arts and crafts. Like you can see that they're really famous for their poetry, like all those Greek pots that you see come from the Minoans. And they also just discovered, or we found, they use a unique writing system called linear A, but we don't really know exactly, like, we can't decipher it, but they did definitely leave an enduring legacy on archaeology and language, and was like a predominant factor in ancient Greece. And another part of their empire that was really important was the Palace of Knossos, which was located near like the modern day capital of Crete. And this is one of the most famous rooms, the throne room, and it's supposed to have the oldest throne in all of Europe. So it's also, this palace is also very important to Theseus and the Minotaur. So this is where the labyrinth was, which is, you know, an intricate maze where the Minotaur was. So as the story goes, Theseus, he was a king. So the king of Athens volunteered, like 7 people go to Crete, and this was to the Minotaur, and Theseus was sent to save these people, but when Theseus went there, Ariadne, who was Minos' daughter, fell in love with Theseus and gave him a ball of thread, which helped him navigate the labyrinth and find his way back. So he was able to successfully defeat the Minotaur. And after his victory, he went back to Athens. But the tragedy is that Dad, King Aegeus, thought his son had died, so that he jumped into the ocean and killed himself. So that was a tragedy. And then, you know, Crete was an economic center of the ancient world because of its central location. So, outlining importance in modern ancient world, the crossroads of vital trade routes in the Mediterranean, influential Minoan civilization, also modern day Foresight. I've been there. It's very pretty. Yeah, so next up we got Ave Maria. So it's basically the Hail Mary translation in Latin, and it's a fundamental Catholic prayer. And although it didn't exist in the way we know today in Roman society, it shows us the influence that Latin had on Christian scriptures and more broadly just the Roman on Christianity. So the prayer more specifically, its origins come from the New Testament, specifically Luke and the angel Gabriel. So it's a critical aspect of the Rosary, and especially connecting Mary's unique role in salvation and her role as she is free from original sin. And the prayer specifically serves as a request for Mary's intercession. So its importance to the ancient and modern world, we still say it all the time, it's foundational to Catholic faith, and it represents Latin influence on Christian scripture. So it's also a picture of Constantine. So on the research process, the pros are skipping the brainstorming phase, hearing concise information. Like pretty much all of my information was right. Some of it was a little bit irrelevant, but none of it was wrong. You know, having to double check the research was annoying. The sources, they can't really give you sources yet. They're all wrong pretty much. And I had to like change my prompt like a few times before it was actually giving me something good. And I feel like a lot of the time it's like kind of wordy. It doesn't like really give you like real information. So that's kind of something I have to navigate. But here my quiz question. So who is the king of Crete's predominant ancient civilization? Section.
The Minoan.
Kai.
Imanos.
Yeah, we'll give it to you. You know? From what two biblical figures did the Ave Maria originate? Yeah.
Alright, nice job. Give me a hand.
You asked what the society was.
So that's the king.
And so that-
Who was the king of Greece, ancient predominant system?
As a reminder, guys, one of the rules at Royal is there's no gum shooting. That's why we don't have gum stuff at the bottom of the desk and stuff. So, please remember that. All right. We are going to Elliot. Ready?
This is one of my classical literacy topics, so it's known as Elliot classical beginning. I'm doing classical literacy number 4 through the second wall, is the architecture category. So the second wall is like this, like it's made of these like really large like stones. And they don't use mortar or anything, they just stack them on top of each other. And it's kind of like it's like really useful for the for a lot of ancient Greek civilizations. And the name comes from the macerated stones because they believe that only the Cyclops would be able to carry them. And it's kind of unknown today how they were able to carry the stones. Here is an example of the Cyclopean wall. You can see that like there's no like mortar or anything sticking the stones together. They're just kind of like has to be stacked on top of each other, but they're very stable. And they're very useful in ancient societies. But the history is that it's used in the Greek city of Mycenae. Here's a photo of Mycenae. It's not in its like former glory, but it's still pretty cool city ruins back then. And it was used a lot for early Roman construction and like for defensive fortifications. And it shows the influence of Greek culture on the Romans over time. And in ancient Rome, it proved the engineering skills of the Greeks and Romans, and through them they were able to like stack these massive stones, which was kind of hard for a lot of other societies at the time. And it was a cross-cultural exchange between nations, which was really important in those times. Now it uses like a very decorative detail, not just like a structural thing. So they'll like build a wall behind it, and then they'll like glue the stones to the back of the wall, but it would still look like a wall like that. And they'll use it for like low walls or like a lot of like major buildings. But it's used a lot less now because it's kind of not really very like modern. This is my second topic, but data 6 mathematics, classical literacy number 44. It's no literature. And it's like a literary device that's derived from Greek theater. And it means it's like a sudden and unexpected solution to unsolved problems. So like if there's like a conflict that's happening and it seems like there's no way to solve it entirely. Deus ex machina is when some god from the outside randomly comes in and just like solves it completely. And the story kind of is there. And it was used in the plays of Euripides, Achilles, and Sophocles, and it was used like very often by them because it's like a very quick and easy solution to the problem. And it's a pretty major staple of Greek theater at the time. And to the ancient modern world, it reflects on like the unbreakable nature of ancient life, saying that like basically now in modern day we have a lot of like things we think are great, a lot of things that like take out of life. But back then they had like basically nothing, no technology. So it was very hard for them to live. Everything was pretty fun. They didn't know what was going on at all. And it was a useful device for ancient writers, and it coins Greek and Roman words. So like you know that it's like Greek and Roman if they use it 6 months time, and it was like maybe not time. My reflection on the research process is that ChatGPT was pretty fast and it was pretty accurate. I thought it was really great. And it had a clear narrative of the most important points, and it was good at history, and it was very good at like fact checking my information. But as con, it like couldn't give me sources even if I asked it to, like no matter how hard I tried. So I had to look at myself and like try to fact check all the information, which kind of took a lot of time. But I thought that it was very good for brainstorming and for like if you don't know what like stuff is, you can just like look it up on ChatGPT and you'll get a lot quicker answers. Like Google have a lot better answers on Google, which is really great. Quiz time. So what Greek city Whereas psychotherapy is mostly known for the research and construction.
Want to see that?
Yeah. I see that. And two is one playwright who leads data science. After your opinions. Yeah. So, through my sources. Yeah, yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, Deus Ex Machina is annoying, it's movies. Like, can you guys think of any kind of superhero movies or just modern movies where you're watching it, you're expecting a rational, logical conclusion, and all of a sudden somebody comes from nowhere and saves the day? Okay, Sharknado, I haven't seen that, anybody else?
Appalling.
Really?
It does happen.
That is so? Okay. Well, think about it and then, well, you guys remember it from Lord of the Rings? Kind of where all the eagles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
From nowhere.
Actually, been lots of.
Good, I'm glad you guys can recognize that. And then Jackson's next, let me give you. All right, Jackson, whenever you are ready, please begin.
Salete, meaning known as Jackson Stafford, classical literacy items 47, 48, 29. Corpus delicti de jure and de facto. So corpus delicti translates directly into the body of the crime. And in ancient Rome, they really used it not as kind of like a way for like evidence, but they wanted to prove that crimes actually happened. And that kind of set like the justice standard, and that's why we think of ancient Rome as kind of like a just society back then. And also in today's society, we use it as ways to kind of acquit the innocent and convict the guilty. And then I showed like a crime scene as my photo as a way, because that's usually where corpus delicti is found, and that's how you can gather evidence to make a case. And I decided to use the US Supreme Court as my photo because it kind of is the most powerful court system today, and most of the cases there like have effects on the whole nation and kind of set precedent for laws in smaller courts. And the corpus delicti is pretty important to them. So de jure versus de facto are kind of opposites. So de jure means from the law and de facto means from the fact. Now de jure is kind of used to like say what legitimate things are, stuff that follow the law, organizations. And then de facto is kind of like rebellions and stuff, kind of that are against the law and only have power and name and aren't recognized by certain states. And so this photo that I chose is kind of a map of the world and countries that the US recognizes. And so this map might be different from country to country because not all countries recognize the same countries. And so this is just what the US recognizes as kind of just leaderships. So the importance to the ancient and modern world. So corpus delicti kind of established a precedent for how Roman courts would operate in the future, and it kind of gave the idea of Rome being just to us, and the Roman Republic wouldn't have been able to kind of operate without a good court system. And so de jure, we use it today kind of to legitimize different groups and companies and show that they're legitimate. And then de facto, it kind of takes power away from legal operations and makes kind of society look down on rebellions and stuff that aren't really legal. So my reflection on the research process, I thought that all of my information was accurate, and I could make the information as long as I wanted to be. I just rewrite the prompt. But some of the columns where the answers were pretty redundant, and a lot of the paragraphs it gave me were kind of the same thing. And then there was very few relevant information on how it applied to ancient Rome or ancient Greece.
Wisdom. Is this an example of deire or de facto, an attempt to overthrow a Roman emperor? Brendan,
Exactly.
and then what is for the demonization? Justin, Claudia, here,
There's, no way you can chase at its present. That's that is. Software. How's that?
So.
Any terms of it?
Zero.
They said.
Oh, yeah, you said it's like Michigan. Oh, you have to do your.
All right, you go ahead and begin whenever you are ready.
Okay, so it's it, you know, that's already been. Select up to the topic, that's the same as the Moslems. See on 50 and do the first in history. I think this is the wrong. Did you look at the one I sent you from Google?
That's the one you sent me.
So this is mine.
Where did you send that?
It was on Gmail.
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously,
Sometimes one. It's next to the kids.
oh,
Yeah, that's.
That was actually.
such a shame.
Shut up.
Huh.
James, don't please not listen.
That's what he was.
I think so.
All right, let's begin again.
With it, the number that's already added. And my possibility item is the Moslems, some of the ancient. So, he was born in Athens, Greece in 384 BCE. And, he's commonly seen as, one of the greatest or the greatest, Greek orators. And he utilized, speeches called the Philippics. And these were common, in his speeches against, Philip II. Basically, I'll get into that in the next couple slides, but he really opposed the Macedonian control over his homeland, Athens. And another good thing about him was he was a supporter of democracy and was the leader of the democratic faction within his people. And he was seen as a hero. So there's a lot of statues of him, like this one here. And then this picture. So this is one of the pictures of when he kind of started out speaking. And like initially, he was like trained to be kind of a legal worker. He made a living through that. And then eventually he saw that he had a talent for speaking. So he, despite this stutter, he had a crazy stutter. So despite that, he actually then went into speeches, and then he became what he was today. So when I say when history was written by the defeated, usually people say it was written by the victor, but his downfall was really quick. So his first Philippic in 351 combated the power of King Philip. So this is when he started to openly reject him. And then initially he gained supporters
to fight against the Macedonians. And then in the end, he was condemned by his own people, which shattered him so much that he committed suicide. So kind of coming from his upbringing, people were proud of him and he had a large amount of potential, but eventually his lack of argumentative skills brought him to kind of a violent end, and people regard him now as a hero. Importance. So he's really important to study. As you can see here, he's a symbol of the enduring struggle for democracy in ancient Greece. So again, he was seen as this supporter of democracy that we really see throughout modern countries today. And then obviously his speaking skills were off the charts for the time period. He basically reformed what speech was back then, in the sense that he would deliver speeches to a large amount of people and kind of engage the audience. And yeah, so he kind of showed his struggles like symbolized the kind of harsh time period, especially like in Athens, Greece. If you were a leader, you had to be on point. And when people weren't happy with you, you eventually were killed or you killed yourself in this case. So my reflection on the ChatGPT process, for me, it was pretty accurate, especially with facts about his birth and his career. I didn't really see any problems with that. And I think like ChatGPT could be used like in the future on like a research paper if you really specify and you give it accurate commands, because that's one of my cons. And it was obviously quick and easy. And yeah, so the commands had to be really specific. I initially didn't get 3 paragraphs, so I had to keep restating it until it gave me 3 paragraphs. And then yeah, it deviated from like basically it just totally gave me something that was wrong, and I had to keep giving it frequent commands. And then it didn't provide enough information initially, so I had to kind of piece together stuff that I asked in the prompts. And then so quiz, what were Demosthenes' speeches called? Jake. Olympics. Yeah. And then what political idea did Demosthenes arm?
Explore the idea of democracy.
Correct. Thank you.
Did you them the candy?
No.
Oh. Hey, would anyone like this candy?
Grazie.
Okay, we have. We have. Yeah, I think you have 2.
Good Patrick, bro.
Patrick, I didn't get your.
Pretty tracks.
What, bro?
I got your paper.
I'm 16 attempts.
Like, man, it says. Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Elijah, you may begin whenever you're ready.
So it's a meeting known as bro. I'm presenting on classical literacy item number 5152. The Latin phrase amor omni vincit and bacchanalia. Amor omni vincit translates to love conquers all, and it's a quote from Virgil's Eclogy. Virgil's Eclogy is a collection of 10 poems. It was composed from 42 to 37 BC. This phrase comes from the 10th book. And in the 10th book, a man who was like a nobleman dressed up as like a poor man, and he falls in love with somebody. But then he's feeling deceived, and he decides that love conquers all because it is natural, and you cannot control love. So eulogy is a pastoral poem, and it typically follows a narrative of a shepherd or a farmer. In the first couple books, it follows a shepherd who deals with a partially real and like fantasized world, like seeing kind of some crazy stuff, something like that. The ancient modern meaning, the Romans believed that love was like above everything else, because during a time of like political struggle, wars and civil wars, there was nothing higher than love, and this is like because marriages were often for like political political reasons, so you would marry like another senator's family so that you would gain their respect and trust if you're trying to run for office. So like the love and relationship wasn't often like real, so that it was like to pursue that another way. It's just also a phrase to live by. In the modern world, it kind of changes. It means like kind of to pursue love of all things, and it's just kind of an important concept to carry through life. Bacchanalia is like any of the several festivals that celebrate Bacchus or Dionysus, the Greek god of wine, amongst other things. It was first attended by only women in the lower part of Italy, and it has like it was a cult. It was the Bacchanalian cult, which they kind of got together, drank wine, and then men were slowly invited and initiated into the cult, and it started taking place 5 times a month. And the festival was outlawed in 18 BC by the Roman government because it led to illegal acts that were outlawed, such as orgies. Titus Livius was a Roman historian and one of the only historians to talk about the cult and its festivals. He lived from 55 BC to 17 AD. The cult would gather either in like the woods or in somebody's house because they had to do it in secret because it was looked down upon. And one of the reasons it was looked down upon, other than the legal acts, was it like transcended social classes. So there could be noblemen in the cult, there could also be slaves or servants or just really anybody could join the cult, but they had to be initiated. The festival obviously involved wine because it's connected to Bacchus, and they believed that by drinking so much, they were able to have like a connection with Bacchus and communicate with them. So the festival would often include wine, dancing, and animal sacrifices. And Livy thought that it also may have included poisonings or murder of people not in the cult. It's another reason why it may have been shut down. Its modern meaning, it's just like you call like a bacchanalia like any obnoxious and like unrestrained drinking that leads to violence. And then in like the Renaissance, it describes like a group of satyrs, which is like a mystical beast connected to Bacchus. My reflection on ChatGPT, I found that it gave really quick feedback. So it saved time on the physical research. However, it was really repetitive. So when I would ask it to expand on, I did the phrase more, it kind of just kept on saying, oh, love, love, love. It wouldn't give me like expand on what Virgil was using or how he wrote it. And it doesn't provide any sources. So all I did was constantly fact checking, kind of didn't allow me to like, not creativity, but to pursue what I thought would be an interesting topic. My questions are, what is the translation of Amor on the President?
Love conquers all.
Yeah, and then which Greco-Roman god is the festival named after? Jackson, I'll give you another chance.
Bacchus.
Yeah. And here are my.
Thank you.
Oh.
Oh, there's no K, there's no K.
Oh, that's.
Eight 23.
Well, I really miss you.
Just have a seat there.
Right, Patrick.
Oh, she said to me.
I did not know that, we didn't have a K, so fun. That's it. Okay, let me reset this and go ahead and begin.
So we're saying, you know, we're just gonna have classical literacy.
Wait. Guys, why are you talking? Okay,
That would be
well, so let's just start it one more time, just because it's not, the sound is hard to hear when people are talking in front of you. The speaker is way back there, alright, go ahead.
So we're saying me known as Patrick Rowe, I'm doing classical literacy number 46 on Damocles sword and Judaic history. So basically, Damocles was an attendant for King Dionysius of Syracuse. And he really envied Dionysius' wealth and power, and constantly praised glazing is another term, I guess. Dionysius. So basically, as a response to this, Dionysius invited Damocles to a luxurious banquet and seated him on his throne. And after a while, after enjoying the party, Damocles realized that there was a sword hanging above his head, hanging from a single horseback. So this picture depicts it. On the far right, you can see the sword hanging above his head. And after this, Damocles immediately lost appetite and couldn't enjoy the food or the company in the party. He begged Dionysius if he could leave and go back to a simple life. And Damocles basically realized that true happiness came not from wealth and power, but from peace of mind. Points to the ancient and modern law. So this story, because it's taking place in Syracuse, originated in Greece, and it was reported by the Roman orator Cicero, and it matched the Greco-Roman views on power, which is that those in power are always threatened by danger. And this message or theme basically became a modern metaphor for any threatening situation. So in the Cold War, John F. Kennedy said that the nuclear situation was a Damocles sword. So here is my collection of the usage process. So it was very easy to input prompts and get a factual and lengthy response. And it's also very efficient at just giving short points and looking for you. But I realized that you have to cross check for any inaccuracy or bias, which fortunately I didn't have to study with ancient information. But I also discovered that ChatGPT often doesn't understand or know the context of what it's stating. So there's that problem sometimes. This time, who is the king that variously stated that plays under a sword?
Dionysius.
Yeah. And what principle of the sword of Damocles symbolize?
True happiness is peace.
There's another one.
Oh.
Power and authority comes with great danger.
Right, nice
I have two answers there.
Did we have everybody? We did.
Let me end it.